Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? I'll be joined by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, in just a second. Want to welcome everybody watching on TGI Sports Talk this morning and Northeast Streaming Sports. Let's Talk Sports, Zodiac. Apologize for no college football huddle this week, as we had some work commitments to hold to. And we're going to try to maybe do an abbreviated version of it. Maybe this afternoon we'll try to fit it in somewhere. A couple of programming notes as well. I'll do the Major League Baseball update today at 3 p.m. There will be no Let's Talk New York Sports, as actually the showrunner and host there, I'm just his co-host, Dan Harris, will not be available to do that show. And please, guys, as I say every week, Dan Harris is one of the best people I've met in the course of doing this, maybe the best. And please keep your thoughts and prayers there for Mr. Dan Harris. He is one of the best. We'll talk today, as we've struggled to put the show together quickly, but there's no real shortage of topics to talk about, especially here in the New York area. So it'll be a little more New York focused, but I think of interest to everybody. The Aaron Rodgers and Jets fallout. We'll talk about whether this is Doomsday or is there still hope. I'm sure I'll have a different take on this than maybe I'll have a different take on this than the Mad New Yorker. The Giants blowout, a bump in the road, or just listen, it's week one. We don't train. To be expected. Listen, there's a common theme here for me in all of what we'll talk about today. Plus, the NFL Players Association is going to petition the NFL to move all fields back to grass. Is that really the reason? Again, common themes here. We'll get into them. I'm sure we'll have some difference of opinions as always, and I guess we'll try to get in an NFL lock and don't be surprised if, as well as a college lock and don't be surprised if. With that, let me bring in my co-host, the Mad New Yorker. Good morning, Carlos.
Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, good.
I can.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2 on the mic.
You are 1 2 in. How you doing today, Carlos?
Doing all right. Doing all right. It's a great fall day today in the city. I don't know what it's like over there, but.
Good morning to Dave Guyette. How you doing,
Dave?
And Dave, I just have to tell you, you can put this rumor to bed. It's just that. It's, it's internet clickbait fodder. Tom Brady is not coming back, and he's certainly not coming back to play with the Jets.
Can I say one thing about this?
Yeah.
If the Jets do hire Tom Brady, it should be to mentor the Zach Wilson.
Well, he first of all, he can't work for the Jets until he sells his partial ownership in the Raiders. So That doesn't happen overnight. This isn't happening. I mean, this is
it's not going to happen.
Not nonsensical for you, Dave, because you're just reading what you're just repeating what you read, and it's written everywhere. I've seen it everywhere. It's not happening. But that does bring us to our first topic. And I think at some point during this conversation, I might get into some of the crazy internet conspiracy theorists out there. Obviously, as we all know, the much anticipated debut of Aaron Rodgers with the Jets did not go so well. 4 plays into the game last Monday night, he went down. And I can tell you that watching it and not watching any severe twisting and turning and just the way his foot bent, as somebody who I didn't tear my Achilles, I ruptured it, which is worse. I said to my wife, he did something to his Achilles, and if he tore it, this is done. Devastating for the Jets. They come back. It's a big win. By the way, that's a huge momentum, psychological lift for this team. For Zach Wilson to come in there, not expecting to play. Now, his job is to be ready to play, right? But, they could have easily gone in the tank here in this game and just fell apart. And I thought they played a very tough physical football team. Their defense is really good. I do not think this is doomsday for this team. I think they still have a legitimate chance to be a contender in the AFC. Not as good as it was before, obviously, but I don't think the season's over.
The season's not over, but the season is not going to be. It's not going to be a good season for them, as well as their defense is playing. Kudos to Solon and their defensive coordinator having them on. Still going strong after the situation. Zach Wilson, kudos to him. It seems like a positive thing that he was able to go onto the field and try to make this a game. I feel like maybe a year ago or even his rookie season, he would have just kind of just played and not played with any effort. So I feel like he's just by game one, you could see a little bit of change in his game. And the fact that he showed effort and kept the guys in the game on the offensive side is a good sign for Zach Wilson. I'm not saying that he's gonna, take over the role and take them to the Super Bowl. I'm not, I don't think anybody's ready to say that yet. But maturity is always a good thing. Showing effort is always a good thing, and even being a leader that you were not in the past is a good thing. So I still think the Jets are gonna not win more than 7 games.
Well, didn't you think that beforehand?
I did. I didn't think that they were gonna do that well this season, even with Aaron Rodgers at home. So
now I may not. Again, I don't know. I'm not going to change my pick. I'm going to pick them still to win the division. Maybe they won't. I can still think they make the playoffs. See, here's the thing. Zach Wilson didn't look great coming out of the gate Monday night. Struggled a little bit. I think the shock of everything that was going on affected everybody for a while. But when they got in the locker room and regrouped, he played a good second half. And this team does not need Zach Wilson to be Aaron Rodgers. He just needs to manage the game. They've got talent in the backfield. You saw Breece Hall coming off an injury have a spectacular night. I mean, at least a couple of spectacular plays. Dalvin Cook had his moments. You've got really good receivers in Lazard, who maybe struggled a little bit, but had a couple of big first downs. And Wilson picked it up in the second half. There's just so many weapons around him, and this defense is so good. Nobody's scoring, going to outscore this team by a gazillion points. He's just got to keep them in games and manage the game. Game manager, right? It's overused description, but that's all he needs to be. Don't make mistakes.
Don't make mistakes. It's a key is to every young quarterback starting in the NFL is like keep the mistakes to a minimum. And he's got, I feel like when he stepped on the field, he had that mentality in the second half. Like, let me just do what I have to do, not more than I need to do. And that was something that you didn't see last 2 seasons at all. So I give him credit. I didn't believe that he was a quarterback of the future for the Jets from the get, but he's maturing and he's doing his thing, and that's all he can do right now, right? So
yeah, two things on that topic with him. Kudos to him for accepting, the fact that he needs to develop more, he needs to learn more, he needs to mature more, or needed to. Maybe he is. And kudos to Aaron Rodgers for, again, he took him under his wing in training camp.
Yeah, and that was, you hear 2 different sides of the story from the Packers organization, and now I think Aaron Rodgers has come, has maybe that darkness helped, but he's come to light and seen that he can be a positive. He can be more positive on the team and for himself. And now that he's a different person, a different age, more mature, that he taken, doing something for the Jets as far as helping Zach Wilson. And listen, when he met Zach Wilson and they played last year, he said, "Hey man, you have potential," and now he's carried that. What he spoke to Zach Wilson before, and now they're teammates, and that's a good thing. However, friendships don't make great quarterbacks. So we're just, you're taking a step at a time. So
when you watch some of the stuff, and again, Hard Knocks is edited and this, that, and the other thing, I get it. But the stories that I've seen out of Green Bay is that he did work with Jordan Love to get Jordan Love in a place where he could start for the Green Bay Packers at one point. Where, again, we talked about this. I think Aaron Rodgers learned and had a bad taste in his mouth from the way Brett Favre treated him when he came to the league. And he said, "I'm not training my replacement." He had nothing to do with that. And I do believe Aaron Rodgers with Jordan Love, maybe, I don't know about before that, but they weren't drafting replacements for Aaron Rodgers before that anyway.
Right.
I think he did work with Jordan Love a lot. And again, I hate to be the guy to defend Aaron Rodgers, but he does have some good points. I think he's had a great influence, again, not friendship wise, but just showing how Zach Wilson to prepare, how to, if a play's not, well, maybe if a play's not there to get rid of the ball, because that's one of the knocks on Rodgers is he tries to force things sometimes, but like his predecessor in Green Bay. I just think that he has had this. Now, I think one big thing to see for Aaron Rodgers has himself maybe really wants to dispel the vision of him coming out of Green Bay. What he does from this point this year, I think speaks volumes. When he's able to, he probably can't for a while, but when he's able to participate, practice, be around for games and help Zach Wilson, that will speak volumes to me about who Aaron Rodgers is now.
Yeah, and you spoke about Hard Knocks, and I finally got a chance to see it, and now I'm finished it. It was the idea of him being on camera and saying things like, take it all in. You only get to play once. You only get to see, be in this position. Sometimes you might not have the opportunity. And I feel like he was laying the groundwork for maybe something bad happening to him, but or maybe not. Because you never know. It's life. But when you're older and you take an injury, it's totally different than when you're younger, right? My question to you is: do you think he's coming back?
I think he will, because I don't think he's going to want to go out this way. I saw a great comparison, and Ian, good morning, watching over there in Australia and watching the Australian rules football as we talk about American football.
Good day, mate.
Good to have you with us again. A great comparison I read this week was when Mo Rivera had an injury in his second to last season. He was going to retire the year before he retired. And he said he got hurt, I believe, in late May, late April. And he said, I'm not going out this way. He came back. He's 42 years old, had a tremendous season this last season. And as we know, was the first and only so far unanimous selection to the Hall of Fame. I see similarities there. I think Rodgers is competitive enough that this is not how he wants to go out. I think he'll be back. He'll try to come back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think he'll try to come back. I think he'll be back, and he's not going to leave that money on the table either, man. I mean, that's a lot of money to be left on the table if he chooses to.
I'm not sure it is. It's all guaranteed, though. What's he leaving on the table?
I know, but I believe there might be clauses about players retiring and how much money they get.
Well, it might be because of injury. I'm sure it's protected somewhere.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know the underwriting. We don't know the exact, verbiage and what the contract says. But I mean,
and I'm giving a 39-year-old quarterback, $70 million. I'm taking out some insurance.
I bet the next day they had some guys underwriting and making sure that they were going to be protected for sure. Especially, and not to say that it's a bad thing, especially for the age that Aaron Rodgers is, and like I said, any kind of injury at that age. At my age, like it's not, it can be crucial or it could be just, something simple, but it's not easy to come back from at all. So
good morning, Alan. And I'll be getting into that topic later on in the Major League update for sure. As far as Rodgers coming back, Ian says he'll try to come back, but his body won't let him.
Interesting point.
Another comparison people make with this type of injury, Dan Marino had it. Came back, but a couple things you remember. Dan Marino was only 32 years old. Dan Marino also wasn't the type of player Rodgers was with the movement. Rodgers moves a lot around the pocket and throws on the run. That wasn't Dan Marino. Dan Marino was a statue before he had this. It's going to be interesting to see if at 40 years old he can rehab himself enough to be able to have enough of his game to be able to play. I think he'll try. I do think he'll try.
Well, I think for sure. Like for sure, he'll get better. He'll heal. I don't think he'll attempt to be the player he was, and I don't think his body will let him be the player that he was. Yeah. And if you can see the last two seasons, you could tell that he was already not the player he was. And the age was starting to catch up with him a little bit. But again, this is a guy who's smart, who takes care of his body. and then also he has a very high pain and will mentality. So it all goes. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Only Aaron Rodgers knows. But this is us just prognosticating. So
for all of his faults and the things that I've knocked him for the last 2-3 years, there are some good things. He is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Hold the Super Bowls against him like I do. In some ways, it depends. I only hold the Super Bowls against him when people try to put him above other people with Super Bowls. But there's no doubt he's a great player and a great competitor, as you said, and he's gonna make every effort, I think, here. And he's not a guy that I would bet against.
And New York guys, Jets fans, media, Aaron Rodgers is not dead. He just got hurt. It's an injury. So we can leave all the banter and the excessive, mourning for another day.
For Jet fans. I mean, good morning, Kenny. Kenny, who is not an Aaron Rodgers fan. He's a Green Bay fan, but was not an Aaron Rodgers fan. At least I'm sure as these last few years played out. But it's going to be interesting to see. You're right. The thing is, somebody didn't die. You got to put these things in perspective.
I'm so sorry.
It happened actually on the, if I'm not mistaken, Monday was the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Let's have some perspective here, right? But I guess if you're a Jet fan, it's hard to have it. Alex, sorry for not believing in New England. That's okay, Alex.
That's a good transition. Your Patriots did better than I was thinking they would, and it was good for the team, for Belichick, for maybe the future games they play. But I still don't think they're going to do well this season. Before
I move on, I'll make a comment there in a second. He's a good quarterback, as Kenny said. That's high praise for Kenny, for his ex-quarterback, but he's not coming back from this. It's certainly not a sure thing.
Look, how about this? Maybe he'll be back, but he won't be the QB everybody expects him to be.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers does come back, if he does, for sure. Yeah. And Alan says Aaron Rodgers is dead, but we'll get into the Giants. We'll get into them in a bit. I got some thoughts there. Run contrary to the Mad New Yorkers. Well, good morning, Sports Scopes. Guys, if you haven't watched Sports Scope, please do. I mean, if you want NFL information, this is the guy to go to, Robert Butler at Sports Scope. Good job. So real quick, before we transition into something else here, listen, I didn't think they'd win the game last week. I will tell you, and there's no moral victories in this league. I might have texted Carlos. I don't know. I said it a million times last week. I saw lots to be happy with last week. Lots. This team is not going to be a 6-win team. There's lots of things. That first 5 minutes destroyed any chance they had to win. Actually, it didn't. They had chances to win the game in the fourth quarter, which was my don't be surprised if. But they couldn't get it done. Defense played really, really well. So still some bad penalties. Still some things to work on. But I saw Bourne get involved in the offense, which I've been calling for 2 years now. Get him back involved. I saw a lot of good things. And this is a good football team they lost to. It was bad football, which we'll talk about later, too. Let me catch up on these comments before we go any further here. Anthony Price, good morning. How are you? I was scared of the Eagles, but they don't look too good on offense. Last night.
No, last night, yeah.
I thought last night they were much better than they were last Sunday. Last Sunday they did not play good football. I'll give you that. Robert is our version of Adam Schefter. That's good.
I don't know if you want to say that. He might take offense to that. Robert Butler is Robert Butler.
I will say Adam Schefter is not one of my biggest. I think he might be grabbing information from Robert Butler and claiming it for his.
I wouldn't be surprised about that. No, that might be true.
I think we're back to Rodgers here. He got what he wanted, $83 billion. Now he's headed back to the cave and the mushrooms. So he's not heading back. He won't quit. I don't think he'll quit. I think he'll try to come back. And I think it's only 73, but whatever. What's $10 million when we're talking about? Right? I mean, and good morning to Bob and
Bob.
My dad and my stepmom, Jeanette. Good morning. Who else we got here this morning? Alan says the Eagles nearly laid an egg again.
I told you, Alan. I told you that might happen.
I don't. Geez, what do you got to win by to not? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what it is.
What do you got to do not to be thought of as, well, how did he nearly lay an egg last night? This game was rarely in danger of them losing it.
No, I mean, Keith, I think it's because it's a new type of football, a new era of football. I think like people who watch it now, have a different perspective than like how you used to watch football. Like win is a win. Football is a difficult game, and I can see why you're getting a little agitated about what Alan said. But then again, you have to see football the way the newer version of football and what we see today.
Why are wins different?
Because
different than they used to. I don't see how.
It's just, I mean, it's hard to explain and compare, but like it's,
we're a little off topic. Let's take a quick look here. I want to look at the box score. And again, numbers don't say everything. Jalen Hurts, okay, not great. Passer rating was 98. That's not bad. Threw for 193 yards, a touchdown on pick. They ran for 259 yards. Come on. Where's this offense lacking?
It's just the first. If you watch the first half, you didn't think that the Eagles will pick it up, but they have experience and they were Super Bowl attendees, so they should have picked it up. It's just you want the way they talk about the Eagles, you were expecting a lot more in the beginning, especially what they did to the Patriots in the first game. So that's where that kind of like perception comes from.
I'll give Alan a chance to respond to this comment, but you've got to be more objective here. I understand they're your chief rival for the division, but it's still better than the Cowboys. I'm sorry, they are.
I think at the end of the season, they might be one game better than the Cowboys.
And Alec kind of jumps on that, still hanging on his 40-point win. We'll jump on that here in a second, too. Wait until Sunday. It'll happen again to another New York team. I don't know who the Jets have this week. If that's who he's talking about. Until the Eagles get beat consistently, they're the team to beat. This is what I'm saying. Again, all that matters is win. Bill Parcells always said, you are what your record says you are. End of story. And I don't disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just a perspective. So,
see you in week 5. That'll be 2 5-0 teams. Is that Dallas? I'm assuming Dallas.
No, he's 49ers, right? He's a 49ers fan.
No, I meant they're playing Dallas. I think maybe in week 5. What's Anthony got here? I think it's more how you. It's not how you won. I mean, if you want to compare, two teams that have the same record.
No, but Anthony's right. That was an old line in Minnesota that didn't have their center, right? And you were hoping that the Eagles' defensive line was going to be more potent. Now I'm thinking like the Eagles fans are hoping that they would get the same effort Dallas put out, and I don't. It's not the same type of defense. So
What is it? Your defensive line stinks when you give up 28 yards rushing. 28 yards rushing in this game is all the Vikings had.
I think there wasn't any sacks, right?
There was 2 sacks.
There was 2 sacks
for 18 yards.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so.
Kirk Cousins had a good game. At the end of the day, they lost again.
You won the game, Eagle fans. Relax.
Again. I mean, geez. I get it, And it's week 2. Nobody looks good because of all the things I've talked about, and I'll continue to talk about today. You see some of this bad football, not because teams aren't good, because teams aren't prepared yet to be playing real games the way they don't train in preseason.
It's just the beginning of week 2. As per last night's game, Brian Flores did a great job with the secondary of the Vikings. He masked a lot of the plays that Hurts was like looking to do as far as make down the field, and they got one interception out of that in the beginning of the game actually. So, but Hurts, look, he did better the second half, right? He looked past and he was he spotted the defenses making different moves. So and then that running game helped him. So everybody kind of calm down. This is game 2.
At Alan's point, their defense didn't look great. Okay, I mean, I get it, but they're replacing 2 of the key cogs in that defense. It will take, and they've got good players to step in there. It'll take time to get to the level they were at last year. It's still a good football team. I don't have them getting to the Super Bowl, but they're going to win that division. ESPN said the quarterback quit. Why? Oh, I know, because it's a dangerous play. Guys get hit in the head. ESPN just shut up for crying out loud.
Ooh, okay.
Well, I've had
that's a hot take.
I've had that attitude for a long time as they bash the Patriots week in, year in, year out. Jets go to Dallas this week. Oh, that's where that comment comes from. We'll see. Listen, the Jets are going to stay in that game because their defense is really good, and your quarterback better be able to move out of the way.
Yeah. I think it's going to. I was saying on a pregame show, the NFC East show, that this game would probably be one of the driest games all season. It's going to be defense versus defense, and whichever defense plays the best will probably win the game because the offense need to score, right? And Prescott is not. He just played the game and didn't make any mistakes. And the Giants just played terrible. But this is not a Giants defense. This is not. This is a totally different team. So
Kenny comes in on the side of me here. It's the score of the game. At the end of the game, that's all that really matters. By the way, I'll harken back to the only undefeated, and I hate to back this team up too, because they're so obnoxious. The only undefeated team ever, the Miami Dolphins in 1972. You watch their games. This was not a dominant football team. They didn't win, but I don't think they won but a couple of games by more than a touchdown. They were all close games, but they won them all. And that's what they're remembered for. Again.
Yeah, they didn't outplay many teams at all. They just played the game to the end.
And I'll give you another example that hurts me to my core. One of the best teams in the history of football will never remember as such because they lost the only game on their schedule that mattered to the Giants.
The Patriots.
They looked tremendous every single game all year long. So what does it matter unless you win? That's all it matters.
Yeah, and kudos to the Patriots for having that great season. But I'm sorry that the Giants had to win that game on a helmet catch.
Not as sorry as I am. Listen, there to prove a point, I stuck a knife in my heart twice for you guys. These are 0-2 in one-score games so far. Well, there's only been 2 games. So.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Vikings are playing, the Detroit Lions and Green Bay need to watch out because they can score points. They just right now haven't found the way to win the game. Yeah. So they can score quickly. So I mentioned that in the NFC show. Like you can't just hang your hat on keeping it close. You better watch out for the Vikings. Again, then I wouldn't put them as my black horse, but I wouldn't. I'd give them a little bit of respect, and you got to be careful. You got to the offense.
They're still a favorite in this division. I picked the Bears to win it, but. I'm not panicking after 1 week either. And I don't think that, listen, 0-2 is not a horrible start in the NFL.
It is. It's not.
0-2 teams have gone on to win a Super Bowl, by the way. And I had a few of them. So it just happens. Again, the bad football, and this will be a theme here throughout this show again. The bad football we watched last week and we'll probably continue to watch the next couple weeks is a direct result of not playing real football before you start to play real football. Don't hit training camp. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play in preseason. Don't tell me that the conditioning is not affected and you're not ready to play full speed and these injuries happen. We're going to get into the field a little bit.
Yeah, so Keith,
blame this, but we don't blame the conditioning. We don't blame the lack of hitting. We don't blame anything but the field now.
Yeah, my question to you is why does it take 5 to 6 weeks to get to a level where
because they don't play hard in camp. They don't play in preseason games. Who plays? Nobody plays.
Yeah, but so if you add or you play more in the preseason, you think that football would be better in the first 2 weeks or the first few weeks of football? You think that would change?
I do. If you played,
I don't believe that. In fact, there probably would be even more injuries.
Go back and look at preseason box scores before the 90s, and the starters played the entire games. The entire games. There was less injuries, at least season-ending injuries, than there are today. It's just simple.
I mean, I don't know if it's good to take the data from like pre-1990, but
why is it irrelevant? Because it happened before you were born. I mean, I don't get it.
Actually, I was born in the 80s, but
I was using that as an extreme example, but that's what we get. A lot of people in your
In my demographic.
Demographic. I think sports didn't start until they started watching it. You know, nothing matters before that. It does matter.
I just think with the time, the rule changes, the way athletes take more care of their bodies than they did before. Just a lot of the mentality of players. A lot of these things. Listen. If I was the San Francisco 49ers, I wouldn't want to play the San Francisco 49ers of Joe Montana or Steve Young's.
You sure wouldn't.
No, not at all. And it doesn't matter with the speed of McCaffrey and the defense that they have that's fast. You wouldn't want to play that team, man. And look, you would go against players like Ronnie Lott, Rathman, Taylor, Rice. I mean, you know, like
the Steelers of those days either.
No, you know, those guys like Kevin Green and, you know, like,
under their rules.
Yeah. So you know, that's why I'm not saying that it's not relevant. I'm just saying that it's hard to take that information from that era and try to, you know, say that for this era that would work. I'm just saying maybe if you do it for 3 seasons and you say, okay, this is how preseason is going to be and set a structure. And then play out for like 3 or 4 seasons and then take that data and say, we'll just revert back to the way it was. Yeah. Maybe that would work. I mean, you know.
I'll come back to this comment in a second, but I see one ahead I want to skip ahead to this topic. Speaking about 0-2 teams, remember, this one, it's just about the Patriots. To my point about not remembering history, that most Patriot fans I know, when I was young and going to had season tickets going to games in the 80s, I was the only Patriot fan I knew up here other than the people in the ballpark. You know, it's all, you know, bandwagon jumpers. And by the way, to just make sure I bleed out entirely from my wound, Alan points out that the 07 Giants we just talked about started out 0-2. Patriots had a few 0-2 starts through the years, by the way, in those.
I mean, those numbers are, I'm not sure if they're relevant, but they exist. Where people are like, if you win the first 4 games, doesn't mean you're going to be a Super Bowl contender. You know, those numbers are. It starts after 5 games, though, right? If you're 5-0, the likelihood of you know, being in a.
Well, you know, again, yes, it becomes more relevant as we go along. But week 1, week 2, I've seen the Patriot teams 2-4 and make the Super Bowl. So again, players getting injured more in practice than in preseason. More well, you can because Anthony, they don't practice hard. They only practice in pads 10 times all summer. Nobody plays in preseason games.
Keith's idea of practice is make sure you got blood on your jersey and dirt on your knee pads.
Exactly. They don't hit in practice as much, and Keith is. It is a joke. It's all a joke, and it's relative. And there's another comment coming up here about, and I'm going to say this, and it might be right here. Play calling. We talk about the players and getting hurt, but Alec's point here is on target as well. One of the reasons the play calling is bad, or at least appears bad, is because they haven't had time to really work in game situations. When you're playing in a helmet and shorts, calling plays look really good, right? But when you get guys running after you at full speed in pads, they don't work. You have to change things up. That's why, again, we get bad play. It's just not just the players, but play calling comes into it as well. And I think that is also an offshoot of the way we prepare for the season.
Yeah, and also one other way to look at it too, play calling wise, is that you're expecting your starters to be on the field when you make the play, when you call the plays. Like you're expecting everything to be A-okay. And this is one of the problems with the Shanahan system that I've always mentioned, and I'll always hark on, is that the Shanahan system is set up for your starters to be being on the field and making those plays. And when they're not there, you're all of a sudden, you don't have a contingency plan. You have the next guy up, and he hasn't been playing in the system that long, or he hasn't had that many reps. And so that way, that in that sense, you're all the way behind the 8 ball now, and you have to play catch up, and it just looks terrible. And that's one of the things about the show. And I can't just say the Shanahan system. Maybe there's a lot of other playbooks that are like that as well, but it's specifically. What I'm talking about is specifically to the Shanahan system, because you see it and it happens. And the 49ers haven't been successful when they lose either a quarterback, a wide receiver, both, you could see that. So,
and interesting enough, they were one of the few teams that have a good game the first week out. So, and Ian is reporting now that Carlton has upset Melbourne in one of the biggest all-time, or one of the greatest all-time finals in Australian football.
we should put.
We're gonna have to have Ian on one day to talk about this game because I hear so much about it. I know there's an American that plays over there, or did play over there. Was one of the great players, and I want to talk to him about that at some point. So let's put that together sometime, Ian. And Kenny says, before we move on to our next topic here, Kenny says, different times, the guys of yesteryears could play today, but most of the receivers and quarterbacks would be like Rodgers, out in a heartbeat. If the rules were the same, if the teams came back to play today's game and the rules were like they were then, a lot of players would be in the hospital for sure.
Well, I think, Kenny, one thing that we need to realize too is the fields that they play on. These players yesteryear made a difference as well. And people might not think that, but there's a lot of studies, a lot of information out there that makes playing on turf worse for players than it does help them. One of the type of players that hurts the most that we don't talk about because they're not playing NFL football is women in women's sports. The women that play lacrosse, that play soccer, field hockey, their injuries are in the 70 percentile. And one of the reasons is not just
what does that mean? 70% of what?
Of injuries are caused by the field, of being on the field, on turf. It's 60 to 70%. Higher than playing, higher comparatively speaking than when these women play on grass.
70% higher in lacrosse, which is much less of a contact
sport.
No,
I'm saying what I'm saying to you is that the injuries are 60 to 70% higher for women on turf than they are on grass for the team sports that they play, not specifically to one sport. This is accumulation of it.
So we're going to skip the Giants for a second just because you segued here to this topic. So the NFL, to Carlos's point, the NFL Players Association is going to be lobbying the NFL to switch all stadiums back to grass. It might be half and half. I didn't pull up the number. I know it might be half and half. I can't remember. It might be more than half have turf. Now, again, this is not AstroTurf that we remember when it first came out. It's not, concrete with just carpet laid on top of it, which was atrocious. We all know that.
No, it's that bouncy stuff that has that crisscross fiber. Yeah, filter.
It has more give to it than AstroTurf had. Now, you just pointed out some numbers in women's lacrosse, which, again, I don't
Not lacrosse. In all women's sports that are played out on the fields, field team sports. Okay,
that's fine. I think my point will still be germane here, that those sports are not quite as physical as the NFL.
Right, but the women play with speed and change direction, and which is why these knee injuries occur.
Which also, I would say the players in the NFL play with more speed and change directions just as much. Some of them. Not
right,
all.
But you're
offensive lineman.
Now, but you can't compare body types. Women have a different body type than men, right? So you can't compare the body. You just have to look at it as the fact that injuries are occurring on these type of fields. You can't look at it as like, well, an old lineman and a women's lacrosse player or a field player, it's a speed that they had. You can't look at it that. You have to look at the fact that they're playing a sport on the turf, and this turf is causing them to get major injuries, knee injuries.
We're talking about, Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback. It was really a non-contact injury.
Yeah. Okay, fine. All right.
Which is what the Players Association is talking about, that non-contact injuries are way up. They're not way up since, let's see, study started in 2021, and it showed that injuries occur 0.013% more on turf than on grass. That is less than that's barely 0.1% more injuries. That's like minimal. And I don't know.
But that's just football. That's just NFL football, right?
But that's all we're talking about. We're talking about the NFL Players Association. We can get into the other sports at different time.
Right.
Well, the NFL Players Association wants to go to all grass field because they feel that this is detrimental and hurting guys' careers. It's affecting very few guys' careers based on the numbers, which we all like to throw out there. Numbers are what they are. We can all make them say what we want.
Right.
It's less than out of 1,000 plays. That's not even 10 guys. 10 guys getting hurt more on turf than grass.
That's one guy more than you need to get hurt at all, especially for the amount of money that you're paying them.
Are the injuries going to stop on grass? No.
Okay, no. Or
the same injuries. I will tell you that play probably would have happened on grass and as much as it would have happened on turf.
I don't know because there's more give on grass. He would have been able to turn his foot and toe with his cleat at least, and maybe gotten a strain, not a rupture.
It's about the and again, maybe you're accurate, but I think there's a lot of cushion on these fields.
I know. So what happens is when he planted his foot, when he planted his foot couldn't turn because he planted, and the force that he was put on the top of his foot is what came up and ruptured his Achilles tendon. So had he been wearing cleats and you playing on grass and dirt, he would at least been able to turn his foot and his ankle to where he maybe still had the same injury or maybe had just a strain.
Again, there are so many.
There's no way to say that because it's all
there are so many factors involved in every specific injury to be able to say definitively that one is better or worse than the other is impossible to me. Some guys are hit by nobody. Some guys, it all depends. Again, don't forget they don't train the way they used to train either. They aren't prepared for injuries. So again,
I think what the NFL should do is have the guys practicing on grass or the teams that have grass do studies on how many players have injuries that are knee, foot, or leg injuries on grass that they practice on compared to the guys who are playing on turf and see and then get an idea and whether it's something that's relevant or not. Right. Yeah. Because a lot of practices don't happen on turf. A lot of guys play on grass, so
again, my point is more, it's not so much that I'm trying to argue the point that grass is better or turf is better. My point is the NFL Players Association gets to be hypocritical because they're looking out for player safety. But at the same time, just like I talk about major league pitchers and the way that why they blow their arms out, they blow their arms out and these players get injured because they don't train the same. They don't prepare for season and getting hit and the movements that need to be taken the same way they used to. That accounts for a lot of these injuries as well.
Yeah. There's sometimes a little bit of truth to what you're saying, but to my perspective, I think that the players and the training staff overtrain their players in other things and don't let enough rest and recuperation time in between when they have to play. I think more injuries come from that. And one example, for instance, where we saw this guy coming back from an injury for the Mets throwing Syndergaard was like lifting hundreds of pounds. Well, that was him working out and
baseball. How about
baseball? Yeah, but it wasn't thrown. But it's a different type of exercise, a different type of workout, and it's like he might be strengthening his muscles and but he's not, like you say, he's not throwing a baseball, and it didn't help him. It really didn't help him in the long run because right now he's almost out of baseball, right?
Right. Well, back to Aaron Rodgers, and what the Players Association is now pointing to as their latest evidence that this needs to happen. They say that this field caused the injury, but they don't mention the fact that he only played 8 plays in all of preseason to prepare to play in that game Monday night, which again is a factor in that injury. And please, they don't even address it because it doesn't fit their agenda, so they don't address it.
Yeah, I think though. I played on both. I've played on both field turf and grass as soccer, not football. Soccer. I played on both, and you are faster on field turf. I'm not. There's no.
I don't doubt that.
There's no doubting that you are very fast, and even the ball's faster. Everything's faster on field turf. However, as much as you are fast, if you make the wrong cut, if you make the wrong turn, you will get an injury. And now, if you play on grass and you do the same thing, the playing on grass is the play is a lot slower. So when your body and your mechanics, when you're moving, you have almost a tendency to be able to move on with your time, with your rhythm, like on time, and you're less likely to get injured. Now, when you play on hard ground, like dirt that's hard and solid, you're more likely to get injured because as much as you're wearing cleats, whether it's metal or rubber, your movement and your feet you're more likely to fall on your face and get an injury because there's no give.
Yeah.
Right. So
my
that's why
is going to be, don't just look at the field to blame any injuries.
Look
at these you've put into place and you've negotiated into the contract, Players Association, that have caused these injuries as well. Don't just ignore that, because it's a factor in all of these injuries as well. And by the way, I don't know when Kenny said this, so I don't know when the most important thing you ever said was. This was a while back, so I don't know.
It must have been. It must have been when I said, "Don't get too frustrated."
Yeah, maybe. Kenny, go with us. Clarify what that is, because I like to make
no, but Keith, if you've ever, and if anybody ever watches any other type of football with soccer, like from across the pond or what they here in the States, you'll see that they wet and even on football, even in football games, they will wet the grass, the natural field. They will wet it before the games for a reason.
Yeah. Anthony, says, is it crazy to have a dome stadium with real grass? Well, it might be difficult. Some of the dome stadiums that are retractable, it's probably not a big deal. The ones that are not retractable, they tried to do it in the 60s in the Astros dome, and it didn't work out because it all burned out.
Oh, that was different too. That was
they could probably keep them alive today. Ian says, don't understand why there isn't more turf pitches. Synthetic fields are a joke in Australia. So I thought I'd be in the minority here, sticking up for the and I'm not really sticking up for the turf. I'm just saying there are other factors. Alec is obviously picking up on the fact that, hopefully not just now, Alec, because this has been evident for a while.
I don't hate the man. I don't like his playbook, and I don't like that he can't work away from it. Like, he has a mentality, and he feels like it works for his team, and it really doesn't. It's proven that maybe one time it's worked, but it's not. Whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Kenny's got a point here too. Again, I said while I was putting out numbers and Carlos is putting out numbers, we can make numbers say whatever we want. And again, just looking at a couple of quick reports, I could probably find reports that show other results as well, Kenny. So it is the same guys who said head injuries weren't that bad for.
There should be a sports science series. Remember that on ESPN, Sports Science? There should be one on those for turf versus grass.
Yeah. I think it went away about the time they had the head injury dispute going on. Alan says
the concussion,
one foot hit the back of his leg on the turn, causing the tear. I personally think it was the pressure put on, because I know how I ruptured mine, and I didn't get hit. I was going downstairs, took a bad step, and my foot went that far and just hit the right. You got to have the foot at the right angle, and it just pops. So there wasn't at this play. There was some contact. It isn't like there was
Alan, there's a couple doctors on YouTube and TikTok that are orthopedics that explain like the amount of pressure that he's putting on the turn of his foot, and the fact that his foot didn't turn, and that amount of pressure is, and the way he was falling is what ruptured the Achilles tendon.
Yeah. It probably would have ruptured at some point. You rupture your Achilles tendon. There's usually a weakening of it already, and he could have done it. God, who knows? Just doing simple drill.
He could have done it like, throwing the ball to his dog, and turning in the wrong way. And it happens when you're older. It happens a lot. When you're older, it's more likely to happen when you're older than when you're young and vivacious.
I was 50. 2008, 58 when it happened to me. No, wait a minute. Sorry, 48. Jesus.
I was 58. I was like, how old did you?
I was 48 when that happened. Sorry.
Keith, you will forever be young in our eyes.
I made myself 73 years old just now. Oh, sorry, Alec. I didn't. In 2019, 49ers played on that pitch back in the weeks and ended. Again, my point is not so much that the turf is worse or better, grass is worse or better. It's that the Players Association is only looking at one factor for these injuries, and they are culpable in this as well because of the way they negotiate their contract. So nobody has to work out hard in training camp.
Yeah, I mean,
Kenny was talking about the turf and grass, so this is the most intelligent thing you said.
Thank you, Kenny. Anything that comes out of your mouth, I'll take with a grain of salt. No, but whether it's turf and grass, and whether they're practicing hard or not going all hard at it. At the end of the day, these men are are trained to be athletes at a high level and playing in high intensity sports. My thing, and that which there were some players maybe, in previous eras that were training high end, but not as many, right? Can we say that? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in today's era, there's more guys. I'm not going to say all of them because there's players that say that they don't train hard, who are training high and training in a high intensity and harder. And I feel like that can also lead to their injuries.
Exactly. I agree. And they're not things that get you ready for football type.
Right. Like I can certainly say for the Jets, Mekhi Becton, when all the information that was coming out about what he was doing and what he wasn't doing, like what he wasn't doing before he got injured and what he was doing after he got injured is where he's at now. He's back. Is he at full, as he had his full potential to play? Probably not. He still needs to get a little bit into that rhythm, but he's looking better and his body's in a better state to play football compared to where he was the moment he got injured. Right? Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair to say.
Okay. So,
let me get some more of these comments real quick. Kenny, this is typical Kenny. Kenny's not necessarily talking about growing your garden grass inside. Kenny's like, you can grow lots of things inside, which is a bit of an inside joke here on the show. We all know what he's talking about, those who pay attention. Anthony asked me if I'm saying everybody needs to play in a preseason. I'm saying guys need to play more preseason games. Again, back in the day with fewer injuries, maybe because we were playing on grass, I don't know. Guys would play if they played 6 preseason games, and the starters would play the majority of those 6 games. I'm not saying they have to play that, but you're going to play more than 8 plays in preseason. And it's not just the games, Anthony. Outside of the games, they do nothing to get ready, in my mind, for real football games. They practice 10 days in pads. That's it.
Keith, and the era of football that you were talking about, there were more men losing their teeth playing NFL football than they were in a dentist's office, going to the dentist's office, taking care of their cavities.
That's when men were men and so are women. That's all I can say. Quote Mel Brooks. Crazy how Rodgers and J.K. Dobbins had same injury in week 1.
Yeah, that's bad for Dobbins, man. I was hoping he was have a good season this year. Especially because they the way that they changed the play all the plays for them in Baltimore.
Kenny's wrong here. They do the main reason we have turf field is because of cost effects. We don't.
Yeah, that's it. It's a big discrepancy between regular turf grass and the hybrid turf field.
Do you think the long stops between playing American football? Yes.
Ooh.
Absolutely. It's a great point, Ian. It's a great point. We have all these TV timeouts and long delays for replays and this, that, and the other thing. And yeah, I would say there's times where your body is going to tighten up. You're not as loose as you were before. Maybe guys don't get ready after halftime. Now, we're coming right out of the game, but
yeah, but you see on the field too the bikes to loosen up the players. Yeah. I don't think there's enough bikes on the field. And then there's also guys who don't need to be on the bikes. There's enough guys that are warmed up and good to go. So it's maybe a little bit of both, right?
Stop bringing their kids to the game and ride the bikes. I know what you meant, Kenny. Oh, I see. Okay. What's this here? Simple. Yes, I agree. And listen, we're running out of time here, so I got to get to one more topic. We're not going to have a lot of time to spend on it, but we got to touch on the Giants loss real quick.
Why?
40-0. To me, it's one game. All the factors I just talked about preseason, not preparing. This was a perfect train wreck for the Giants. They fell behind, made a couple mistakes early. This team will never, as much as I hyped this team up a little bit, certainly more than you, this is not the type of team, and Daniel Jones is not the type of quarterback who's going to bring you back, at least not with the weapons he has, when you're down 16-0 in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the game, or down 21-0. They're not built to do that. They have to play mistake-free football, and they did not do that. I do not think this is going to really be – I think this is nothing more than a bump in the road for the Giants. I know you think it's worse than that.
I mean, it's okay to have a bad game here and there, but this was a atrocious representation of any football team on the field. It was just, it looked like they just learned how to play football, and they were hoping to be relegated to a professional to the professional leagues. It looked like a double-A team trying to get to like professional league. It was terrible. I think the mistakes came, like you said, because they don't play enough together. Also, we got to be honest, man. Giants fans and people have to be honest. This is not a roster of players that's complementary to each other and balanced off very well at both ends. You have 1 or 2 stars on the defensive end, and then you have like 2 or 3 stars on the offensive end, and that's not a good balance. That might sound even keel, but that's not a good balance at all. But I think that the Giants will still have maybe 6-win season, the same as the Jets. But I hope that they play better, but I don't think that you should expect them to have better results. I think they'll play better, but I don't think you should expect better results from this team at all.
It was a big bump, Anthony. I will give you that. 40-0 is a big bump. But I can tell you, I watched the Patriots go to Buffalo when Buffalo was no good, get beat 38-0 in week 1 and go on and win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Giants are winning a Super Bowl by that, but I'm not comparing those Giants to those Patriot teams, which are great teams. But that's one game. If you're able,
who was the quarterback? Who was the quarterback for that team that won the Super Bowl?
He wore 12.
Okay. Do you think the number 8 on this team is going to roll out and win games for the Giants on his own back?
No.
Yeah, because
the point is, even great teams have stinkers. That's my point.
No. It's okay to have a stinker, but this is embarrassing, bro. This is not 38. This was 40, and it could have been more. That's the worst part. I think that
the Giants' defense played pretty well, actually, considering. I agree with Kenny. They weren't ready for the game. The coaching staff didn't have them prepared. This is a team. As much as I like what I see when all the parts are clicking, they don't have the margin for error that the Eagles have, let's say, or even the Cowboys have. They don't have that margin for error. But when they eliminate that margin for error, they're a very good football team.
So, but Keith, explain this. How do you miss 2 field goals? One was blocked. Fine. Give the credit to the defense on the other end. But he missed the second one. So how is that a part of coaching staff?
Well, the game plan. Listen, the game plan to
like all you had to do is kick the ball, and you didn't do a good job.
The game plan for the quarterback.
Like, and then the O line, instead of making the O line better, the Giants went out and paid Saquon more money. They paid a quarterback who's not deserving of that money more money, and so they don't have anybody to protect to begin with. So not only do they have a terrible O line that's young, this is the only thing is that they have a higher ceiling because they're 2 youngsters on one end that are not playing well off each other because they're young, but who are they protecting? He's not helping the team either.
Well, here's the thing, though. You're right. The offensive line, and we talked about it, and it's almost an epidemic throughout the NFL. There's only a handful of really good offensive lines anywhere in the NFL. The entire AFC East has got problems on the offensive line. But if you don't pay guys like Jones and you don't pay guys like Barkley and you got the best offensive line in the world, you're not going to do anything either. So
listen, the Dallas Cowboys did it for 2 years with Dak Prescott, and he was a 4th round pick or something?
I don't remember the playoff games they won with that.
But they went to the playoffs with that quarterback.
Just saying.
I'm just saying. Like, it's not that you don't need a quarterback. It's that you need a competent quarterback that makes very little mistakes and is smart football, has smart football skills. And Daniel Jones is not. That's bar none.
Huge overreaction to 1 week is all I'm saying.
No, it's not overreaction 1 week because Daniel Jones has stunk it up for the last 3 seasons.
Giants are not as bad as what we saw, and the Cowboys are not nearly as good as what we saw.
And if Daniel Jones is so good and he had such a great season last year, why did he do so bad at that Minnesota game? They had the opportunity of a lifetime to make it to the playoff, make it through the playoffs longer, and they didn't.
You pick out very specific points in time to make your argument, which is fine. That's a good plan. Kenny, have a good weekend. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow at Pioneer Hills to play some golf. So
let's hope game 2 for the Giants goes better, guys. How about that?
So every kick was made. Yeah, I get that. Don't. Kenny just wanted to retract his comment from earlier. Listen, we're going to go a couple minutes over because real quick, we're going to get off this, go to some odds and ends. Real quick, I want your NFL best bet. And you don't be surprised if.
Best bet is that the Tampa Bay might go on a 2-game winning streak. And then the other one is the Jets and the Cowboys that might be one of the worst games you're going to watch this weekend. I mean, it's going to be a defense versus defense battle. So,
best bet I have is the Bills coming up back strong against the Raiders at home. Raiders are terrible, by the way, I think. And don't be surprised if Seahawks go to Lions and win on the road.
I like that call.
Everybody's darling, the Lions, who I just do not think are that good. How about college, real quick?
The SEC will win more games than the Pac-12.
Well, they better start winning soon.
They got to start winning sometime.
They better start winning soon. Here's my lock. I got a good surprise, maybe. Even it goes one of my things here. Lock, Tennessee just destroys Florida this week at Florida.
I'm not calling that because they always play tight games. How about Colorado? What do you got for Colorado? They're going to beat Central Michigan?
It'll be closer than you think. Games in Colorado. They're going to go 3-0, but I think the game might be closer. The coach for Colorado State probably should shut up. Don't give Bill. Don't give the.
Don't build.
He doesn't need it. He makes his own. He doesn't need it.
Keep man. If they go undefeated, man, you're gonna.
Don't be surprised if LSU comes away with their second loss of the season.
Yeah, I'm hoping not, but it could turn out that way.
That's a tough game. This team's still out there in a way playing for Mike Leach. I think Mississippi State team. I think has something to prove, and they want to play for their new coach and their sadly former.
That's one of the games of the week for the SEC. And look, guys, Mississippi State, their boys they have big boys on that team. LSU has some guys that are big, but Mississippi State has some big boys. And I don't know, man. That's going to be a hard defensive battle for LSU.
Colorado bet the over big time. That's probably a good pick right there, Anthony. I will agree with you.
It might go out to a shootout.
And by the way, and I will say this too, and maybe I might throw. We didn't have a college football huddle the other day. We'll try to maybe throw one together for an hour later today. Colorado will be 3-0, but by the end of September they'll be 3-2 because after this week they got SC and Oregon back to back.
Oh, let's see what Dion can do.
Really quick, how good this team is. Carlos, thank you guys for participation today. Wonderful. We'll see you guys next week with Are You Serious? And I'll see you at various times here coming up this weekend. So have a great weekend. Bye-bye.